Hey again, everybody. Next topic. I'm sure some of you have heard the expression shadow work. This is imperative. Where we were talking about limiting beliefs. Um, Whatever you think is your dark side, your id, right? A lot of us want to avoid that. See, that's the problem. We try to suppress it. You can't. This whole trick is bringing things into alignment, is making balance, right? And I've talked a little bit about this before, about anger. You can use that properly. I mean, that's your sense of justice. That's why you have it. Um, it's also fuel. Like right now, in my situation, I have lots of reasons to be angry. But you know what? I don't want to be angry. So instead, I can take that energy and put it into building, growing, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I choose to do with it. That's the magic of life, is you get to choose. But you only get to choose if you don't let others dictate to you what to do with your life. That's the caveat. That's the catch 22. That's how that works. You can't live your best life conforming. Being like everybody else doesn't make anybody special. Again, that's what God loves about us, is our differences. Um, so, getting back into about shadow work, that's just the popular term. I kind of like it. It kind of goes with me. But yeah, you got to think about your dark side. Um, and instead of trying to suppress it, because let's face it, how do we feel when we're suppressed? That makes us want to lash out. That's what we're trying to avoid. You want to be in control at all times. And yes, your emotions are part of you, but you don't want them to control you. You want your mind to be in control. Do not let people trigger you, and learn how to use your dark side appropriately. Again, I use my anger for justice, for fuel. You know, that's that's what's kept me upright. Everything that's tried to take me down, my anger says no. Find your feet. Prove them wrong. And you can't just limit it there. If you have one of those lustful spirits, turn that into passion. Don't diminish your life. Don't lose your self-respect by throwing yourself out to anybody and everybody. Turn that inward. Use that passion on yourself. And then once you grow, you'll get better discernment and you'll find something that is more fulfilling. If you're one of them greedy spirits, greed's great. I love greed. I used to think greed was so horrible, but now that I've learned, you always have to find the silver lining. You always have to find the good in something, because there is good in it. You might be sitting there shaking your head trying to that everyone is so trained to be so contrarian, like, oh, there's no possible way there's any good in this situation. There can't be. That's not how it works. That is the secret. That is you giving into those limiting beliefs. Yes, the most horrible thing could be in front of you. The most. God has a way of taking things that aren't meant for him, right? And using it to glorify. There is a lot of history and a lot of proof to that. Just look around you. And that's how I can, I use my anxiety for good. I'm an overthinker. So now I've trained myself to direct my thoughts. We just saw I'm still working on this because I let myself get stuck in that cycle. I needed a couple wake-up calls to get me back on track. But as you see, it's coming faster and faster because I am training myself. I am staying with it. A lot of people, they get afraid of doing the work. You cannot, you are doing such a disservice to yourself when you wuss out. Because let's face reality, that's what it is. Turn that fear around. Don't be afraid of change. Be afraid of staying the same. Use what the enemy has formed against you to help you rise. That is what shadow work is. Whatever bad habits that the world has taught you, don't lose the illusion, because some habits are so bad that we can't break them. But we can channel them and use them for the better. That's the name of the game. How do I improve? How do I make myself better today than I was yesterday? What can I do differently? What cycles do I need to break to live my life differently? That is what I am living in real time right now. I am breaking cycles that do not serve me, that do not serve my purpose. They do not serve God's will for me. And now that I'm letting that sink in, it's making it easier. It's not easy. Don't be deceived. Deception? Yeah, that's the other guy's tactic. That's not how we work. Don't pay it no mind. Don't give it no attention. Because again, what you give your attention to is what you're feeding. That's what you're letting grow. You turn on the news and it gets you upset, turn it off. Not because you're burying your head in the sand. Right? Because that's the end game. That's the end goal. We need to do something about it. We need to make it change. But if you sit there and let yourself get stuck on it, then you're falling into the trap. That's what they want. That's why it's shoved in our faces. They want us stuck. Get unstuck. It's not going to change until we change it. And we are not able to change it until we change ourselves. That's the important part of what we're doing here. We can absolutely make heaven on earth. It is not a pipe dream. It is not a fantasy. But we got to get our act together before we're able to do it. There's got to be enough of us doing the right thing. And really examine it. That's why you need that insight. You might think you're doing the right thing. Again, going back to the last video, those limiting beliefs. You might think you're doing the right thing, but step back and really examine it. Are you? How does it leave you feeling at the end of the day? That's your telltale sign. If you can close your eyes at night feeling fulfilled, You know, I had this conversation with a friend last night. Happiness is an illusion. Because happiness, it's meant to be a season. You can't be happy all the time. Otherwise, it loses meaning. You know, I see too many people out here living selfish lives chasing happiness. Have you caught it yet? No? Guess why? Because you're chasing it the wrong way. You have to get through the hard times so you appreciate the good times. But again, you can't get stuck in either. You can't get yourself mentally trapped to be always in hard times. This is why discernment is so important. It is probably the greatest superpower that you can have. You understand that life is not yes or no, black and white. You get rid of that binary thinking. That's out the window. I'm tired of people telling me how to live and what to do. It's one thing, there's that discernment, if they are people that genuinely want to see you do well, who definitely want you to improve, you know, who see your worth and want to make you even better. Those people are the ones you listen to. The haters, the negative ones, the ones that say you can't do it, the ones that say it's not going to work, yeah, they don't know better. You do. You know what works for you. But again, that's not an excuse to yank out that victim card and go treat everybody else like crap. That is not what that means. That is not what forgiveness is about. You got to correct that. You got to learn to operate from a place of love. That's why when you do the shadow work, you know, when you take the bad habits, you got to convert them to good habits. Instead of operating from a place of lust, a place of fear, a place of greed, operate from love. Love covers a multitude of sin. Quit letting the wrong things dictate your life. Quit sitting back and letting others take the wheel. Let Jesus take the wheel. But you got to help yourself in that process. That's how we heal. It's not about letting it go. You have to feel it. And then you have to take it from the negative it was to the positive it can be. You know, what I was struggling with lately is I absolutely have been abandoned so many times in my life. You know, how many times have I risen above it, though? That is my greatest fear, is to be abandoned. Guess what? Whoop-de-doo, I survived. Next. That's the point. These limiting beliefs, this letting fear control you, that's making you miss the things that you're supposed to be catching on to. I think that's quite a bit to digest for now, so just really think about that. What changes do you want in your life? And what changes can you make in your life? And bring them into alignment. That's the gauge. That's how you know what to change and how. Don't deny yourself. That's what suppressing your dark side is. That's denying yourself. But you don't give in to your base instincts either. You direct them. Again, that's living intentionally. My intent, this is my end goal. So if I feel this way, if I have this energy, how can I express it? Self is awareness, ego is expression. You got to keep that ego in control. How do I want to express how I feel about this? This is my expression. I want to express what I want people to relate. I want people to see. That's why I'm so public. That's why I'm so open. That is my testimony. I've been talking about this a lot. And I need to share my process because I see things that a lot of people don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm the only one. There's plenty of other people that see things that I do. But we seem to be few and far between. I'm not useless. This is my gift. This is what I can share. Quit letting anyone but yourself tell you what you are worth. And this is not cliche bullshit. This is reality. If you want to be respected, be respectable. But again, that discernment, you got to realize the people that don't even respect themselves can't possibly respect you. So don't chain yourself to their limits. All right? All right. Take care of yourself. Try and take care of each other. And I'll catch you in the next one.